Another historic moment in this already historic presidential race. President Joe Biden has endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take his place in the race, but she's not yet the Democratic nominee.
She'll have to unite the party this month before the convention in August. Let's get right to Good Day's Robert Moses. And Robert, with 100 or so days until election, I mean, it's go time for Democrats.
Yeah, no time to waste, Shani and Dan. And you mentioned the convention. It's in Chicago, which incidentally also hosted the Democratic convention back in 1968 when President Lyndon Johnson bowed out in late March, setting off a scramble for another nominee. Sounds a little bit like this year, though Joe Biden's decision came much later in the process, so these next 106 days are without precedent. In a campaign filled with stop the presses level headlines, this one is the most consequential of all. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, Joe Biden said in a letter posted on X at 1:46 p.m. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. Less than 30 minutes later, he endorsed his Vice President Kamala Harris, who said, "I am honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination." The president's decision amounts to a surprising non-surprise. As recently as Friday, he said he planned to return to the campaign trail this week, despite increasingly loud calls for him to step aside following a disastrous debate performance 25 days ago. Those calls became deafening. Former President Donald Trump says bring on the vice president or any Democratic nominee for that matter.
I wouldn't be worried about any of them. Look, they have bad policies. Forget about the people. They have an open border policy. They have a high tax policy. They have a bad military policy. The whole world is going woke. Their world is going woke. The Green New scam, we're spending all our money on things that don't work. The whole thing is a mess. Our country, if we don't win this election, we may never have another election.
So what's next? The president, who is still isolated at his Delaware beach house as he recovers from COVID, promises to address the American people this week to explain his decision further. The Democratic National Convention's Rules Committee is expected to meet on Wednesday afternoon to talk about implementing a process to choose a nominee. Remember, just because Vice President Harris has the president's endorsement does not hand her the nomination. Since the president has bowed out, his pledged delegates can now support any candidate. One possibility is a virtual vote on one candidate, presumably the vice president, before the convention. If she fails to get enough support, there could be an open convention in Chicago next month. While no challenger has yet publicly stepped forward to oppose the vice president, Fox News has confirmed that West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who in May left the Democratic Party and became an independent, is considering re-registering as a Democrat so he can run for the nomination. If the vice president does become the nominee, potential running mates include Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Congressional Republicans are calling on President Biden to resign from office. House Speaker Mike Johnson said in a statement, if Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, he is not fit to serve as president, though, as you heard in the letter, the president says he will serve out the remainder of his term. Dan and Tashani, back to you.
Never a dull moment. Robert, thank you for that report.